Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, compromised frequencies and compromised quarterbacks.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks as always for making us your first listen. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet guaranteed. So visit FanDuel.com to get started with the only Chris level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. Wrapping up the week, coming to you with your weekly conversation with Joey McGuire now in the rear view, and plenty to get to as it relates to what's going to happen in Ames, Iowa on Saturday at 2:30. We'll get to some interesting thoughts from Coach McGuire regarding Baron Morton, and I've got a question for you regarding the litany of Texas Tech QBs that will be in attendance on Saturday. But wanted to kick off the conversation with a call back to, our last conversation, and that was regarding the bizarre story that was being reported on to wrap up the week in the Big 12 Conference relating to in-helmet communication, and want to get to some of the thoughts that Coach McGuire was sharing with you on that subject. If you have not been keeping up, the Big 12 releases some findings. Texas Tech releases a statement related to the findings. It says, in part, we've received a verbal report from the Big 12 Conference regarding our request to ensure the integrity of our recent football games. This request was made after our head football coach received an audio recording on Tuesday containing clips from our in-game coach-to-player communications. Although it's been acknowledged that a third party provided at least two member institutions with additional information regarding the specific vulnerabilities of the coach-to-player communication system weeks before the remaining members became aware, Texas Tech accepts the conclusion of the Big 12's review, which found no direct evidence that the integrity of any game was compromised. So something to consider from a competitive standpoint just over the last few weeks, Chris, and then obviously still a lot to consider, I'm sure, from a conference or league standpoint and how everyone was affected here. But what's your thought a day later, and what kind of perspective did you get from Coach McGuire on this interesting story?
Yeah, we've had a lot of reporting on this, a lot of statements coming out from various sources, a lot of anonymous quotes and things like that. A lot of this is a bunch of word salad. To me, nobody has answered the questions that we posed. When we talked about this, why wasn't this stuff encrypted all along? Nobody's answered these questions. When exactly did Baylor and TCU? When did they know about it? No one has answered these questions. And why didn't they tell anybody? Or why wasn't everybody made aware when they were made aware, and all that? And that's the biggest problem. But Joey, and again, there's no accusation here of somebody cheating. However, the optics of this, for a lot of folks, don't look very good. It's not a good look, really, for the sport, for the conference, for potentially some member institutions, whatever. And some folks may not even care about that. But it's just on the heels of the sign stealing thing, which there's been documentaries about Connor Stallions and all this stuff and how elaborate that deal was. It's just a bad look. As much money is at stake and as much money is flowing through this thing, I mean, come on. But Joey, I asked him about it on the show last night, and I said, man, one, I'd get crucified if I don't ask you about this. I don't know what you are at liberty to discuss, and I didn't know if he would just kind of point to the university statement and all that stuff, but he's like, well, I said, just kind of take us where you want to with this, but take us through the whole controversy. And he's like, well, I received a phone call on, I think it was Tuesday morning, which we had originally reported on this show. And he was able to listen to, I don't think he was sent any clips. I don't think that it was an entire game, at least that he's not aware of, but he was listening to audio of mainly Tim DeRuyter calling defenses. And I think that it was made clear to him that there was audio of Zach Kitley as well. Okay, so there's all that stuff. And Joey's point is, like he one of the first things he brought up was we wanted to use the company that we used in the bowl game, and so we were not very pleased when the NCAA went with the company that everybody's using now. And as he put it, he said, we will be using a different system this weekend. So I wonder if they've just kind of stepped out and said, hey, man, screw y'all. We're doing our own deal. He didn't clarify, but that's what I wonder. Because as he explained it, the other company, and I don't know if it's Coach Com, I don't know what other company that there is, but the other company actually bounces their signal, as he explained it. It's like there's 100 frequencies, so you could theoretically potentially hack it, but it like bounces every 2 or 3 seconds. So it's like you're having to switch, all over the place, and it's almost it become pretty much impossible. But as he put it, he said, and it clearly bothered him that there was anonymous people suggesting that you couldn't use it to your own benefit, and I think the word was. I think the word in this statement by the anonymous quote or player personnel from another Big 12 school was, I'm trying to remember exactly the word that they used to describe anybody that would suggest that you could use it to your own benefit. And I'm losing my adjectives there, but essentially the statement was saying something like, you got to be delusional. It wouldn't help anybody. Come on. But as Joey pointed out, I had not thought about this, but it's been not only what's been introduced on is these helmet comms this year, but it's the use of tablets. So his point was, so you're telling me that people think it's delusional that if I am listening to a game inside, like listening to a game, and I listen to it, and I've got the use of a tablet, and I hear a coordinator call a certain coverage, for example, and I hear them repeat it in the second quarter, that we can't quickly relay that's this blitz, that's this cover 3, that's whatever. He's like, all this technology is available now. So he goes, why would anybody suggest that is delusional, that it's all at your fingertips, literally on the sideline, if you knew what you were doing? So that's the part that I think that I don't know if the right word is triggered him, but it bothered him that someone would think that it can't be used for no good. But he went out of his way to say, man, I'm not saying anybody cheated, but we have proof that somebody listened in to our stuff on Saturday in our game versus TCU, and all those things. And we would be using a different system this coming weekend. And again, he's kind of asking aloud too, like we have been from the get-go, why wasn't this stuff encrypted? The system was compromised. People were aware that the system was compromised, and yet, and he wasn't totally positive that people didn't even know about it even earlier in September than what we talked about, which was September the 28th. So I don't know if you have a follow-up there, or if you want to take that any different way, but he got into it a little bit, but that's the gist.
All right, that's a big gist to consider. Things were compromised, mistakes were made, orders were given. Who ordered the code red is all we want to know. I don't know, Chris, that, again, from a competitive standpoint, you can think whatever you want about the various programs that have been involved here to whatever extent, but just kind of hard to fathom how the conference, had such a letdown on that level, when you would think from the very beginning, like we talked about, you would have had the fullest secure ability that you could come up with for these types of things. And that doesn't seem that complicated, given that there are other leagues or levels where this stuff is already happening in an encrypted or secure way. So either way, you can make up your own mind about that. That's the Texas Tech response, the Big 12 response to wrap up the week, and some thoughts there from Coach McGuire. As for what's coming up on Saturday, man, I was really intrigued by what he had to say about Baron Morton. And I guess I just continue personally as a fan to kind of slow play the expectation that, number 2 is really going to be number 2 in Ames when 2:30 rolls around. But I think Coach McGuire was using descriptors like full tilt as it relates to Baron Morton. So I'm slow playing it. Doesn't sound like they are. Your thoughts on him will tie into my question I want to wrap up the show with here in just a moment. So honestly, depending upon what you say, the question may not even be necessary. But what'd you hear from Coach McGuire when it comes to Barron Morton and what they're expecting? First, today's episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Fixes tired fast. Whether you've got a long list of tasks at work or a bundle of DIY projects to tackle at home, take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can cover everything with energy to spare. If you're like me, you've always got a lengthy list of things to get done around the house. So when you get your supplies for any project, don't forget the most essential one, a 5 Hour Energy shot. 5 Hour Energy shots give you the feeling of alertness and energy you need to get in the zone. And that's why 5 Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years to give them the alert, energized feeling they need to get through a busy and hectic day. And you always know where to find 5 Hour Energy shots, right at the cash register at nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. Even better, stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. And right now, if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy today, you can use our promo code LOCKEDONCFB. That's LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions and does not apply to subscription orders. Boost your day, boost your life, and get in the get it done zone by going to 5hourenergy.com today. What'd you hear from Coach McGuire when it comes to Barron Morton and what they're expecting?
Yeah, and one of the tough parts about hosting the coaches show is that, especially if the result from the previous weekend didn't go well, excuse me, if it didn't go well, you still got to relive it a little bit and recap it and just kind of go over briefly. Not my favorite thing to have to do, but as we were going over the game very briefly from the previous Saturday, to which he basically said, we should have won it. When you lose a close game like that, it comes down to decisions that were made. And he kind of pointed to his coaches and he pointed to himself, and he kind of went through the whole the 7-step plan to win, and they'd won 5 of them and all the things. And he just eaten up with it and very frustrated and all that. But in the midst of that conversation, I was like, Coach, you'd have a situation at quarterback in this game. At what point did you become aware that Barron was dinged up? And how'd you think Will played? And we kind of went through that. And he kind of went through it that, we weren't sure what happened with Barron. And so we wanted to get him checked out. And so we were going to go with Will in the second half and all that stuff. So we transitioned in, but then he basically said, but Barron's good to go. He's practiced all week. He's looked good. He's full tilt. We're raring to go. And I'm like, well, heck, there you go. I mean, there's no wondering there. Here's what here's what I think is interesting, because there was a point not too long ago, and you'll remember these. It's been in the time frame that we've been doing this show, where Barron Morton was Will Hammond. Because you like me, you have seen plenty of people going, Will look pretty good. Kind of like to see that. That's a pretty good little show. I'd kind of like for it to not be just a quick little sitcom. I'd kind of like to see the full length feature there. So let's can we get to the Will Hammond thing? And it wasn't too long ago when Barron Morton was this guy. This is just how it works. I mean, people were like, get Tyler Shough out of here. I want number 2. How is anybody not looking at this deal and can't think that Barron Morton is the future? He's the best. What are we doing? All these things. And now you're starting to see a little Will Hammond love. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just kind of how it works, right? I think because this was, I don't know. What are we going back to, like less than a year ago? Or earlier last season, when you kind of were like, dude, we've seen the Shough movie. Okay, it sucks. He's going to get hurt. Barron's the future and all that stuff. And, Barron was aware of that aspect of it on social media and all that. And so he kind of is aware how this whole thing works. It's kind of come full circle. So I just wonder if you don't have a really motivated guy wearing number 2 now, because he's aware. He's like, man, I worked really hard to get to this. I'm not ready to give this thing up just yet. So, my non-throwing shoulder may hurt a little bit, but I'll be damned if I'm going to sit out and whatnot. So I just wonder if there's some of that going on too. Just something to ponder. We'll see what it looks like. But I do think you will take Will Hammond to this to this Iowa State game. I think he will be ready at the drop of a hat if needed. And whatnot. But yeah, Baron Morton expected to start, practiced all week, good to go.
Well, there's a second part of my question there regarding practice. Practiced all week is the answer to it, sounds like.
Yep.
To what extent? Was there any reining in at all? I mean,
I don't think so, but I do think that it'll be interesting, because here's the worst case scenario. Like, Barron's the starting quarterback here. That's the way it's going to be. I mean, Joey made that perfectly clear on Monday at his press conference. Hey, coach, if all things being equal, like Barron, he's like, and he just kind of cut off. He's like, Barron's a starter. Yeah, that's what we're doing. And as we've brought up, a running QB would maybe put Iowa State in a bit of a problem based on what we've seen to this point this year. Now, maybe they spent all 2 weeks working on QB run game and all those things, because this is what UCF hit them with. But here's the worst case scenario, because I do think there's something with Barron's non-throwing shoulder. Is it an AC sprain? Is it a bone bruise? Is it a boo-boo? I don't know, but there's something going on. His freaking arm was in a sling for some reason, and there was some question about what they're looking at on an X-ray and all those things. My point is, if he starts this game and he takes a shot and he can't finish it, that's what's really going to suck here. And I don't know if they can make his whatever ails him feel better as kind of goes on during football games sometimes before the game. But I'm sure that if he takes a hit or lands on it or whatever, it's probably not going to feel good. But again, non-throwing. And so that's what would be like worst case scenario for you. Well, I mean, obviously worst case is losing the game, but as it relates to this conversation in this position, that's what you ultimately don't want, is to because you don't want Will to have to relieve him in any case, or like, heck, man, you wish you would have just played Will the whole time, but you didn't know what you didn't know. You follow me?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but I think I don't think he's like, hindered in any way. It's just a pain tolerance. But again, like Mike Tyson used to say, everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth. When he gets hit or gets landed on that shoulder, maybe we're having a different conversation. But he would not have endured that this week, or somebody would have been demoted to scout team if they'd have touched him.
Coach McGuire indicated earlier in the week that they'll take all the quarterbacks they got for them. Will be traveling to Ames, Iowa. So we'll be loaded for bear as far as that position is concerned. And regarding that position, here's the simple question I wanted to ask to wrap up the show. How many quarterbacks are we going to see take a snap for Tech on Saturday? Because I think there's an interesting component of the Brown as a ball carrier part to consider. But you and I know as well how these things with banged up quarterbacks can go. So we see one, we see two. Do we see three? What's your forecast? First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. And NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Say you're watching a game, you get hit with a hunch, an instinctual calling. Well, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're going to place your bets to keep up with everything going down in real time as you submit that slip. And right now, FanDuel is going to get you started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed with only a $5 bet out the gate at FanDuel.com. We see one, we see two. Do we see three? What's your forecast?
Here's how I'm going to answer that. I by deductive reasoning here. I think, knowing what we know now, based on what Joey said last night, that Iowa State is going to be prepared to see Baron Morton take the field. He's been practicing all week and all those things. Okay. So with that being said, at some point, it's pretty clear that Will Hammond clearly passed Cam Brown. There have been times, that's one of those things that was said a lot by Coach McGuire and everybody involved, mainly Joey, back in the summer and specifically August. Cam Brown will appear in some capacity in every game. And for a bit, that was accurate. But it's pretty clear that Will has clearly surpassed him as the quote-unquote backup QB. And I don't know if we ever thought that Cam Brown would ever be a true backup QB or the true option to be a starting quarterback, or, hey, he's a guy that can get you through a game. Because we were excited about this possibility in the summertime. I think you and I talked about like what all this could look like, and you kind of had visions of Colin Klein dancing around in your head, and like, oh man, we got this sledgehammer now that you can utilize, and he's really fast, this and that. But as we've gotten through the season, there's been times where you could have seen Cam Brown play, and he hasn't. He hadn't even been used for trickeration. He hasn't been used as a gadget. He hasn't even been used running QB power. Those reps have gone to, I think, in some cases, Jalen Conyers, and in other cases, they've gone to Taj Brooks. Like he's just taking direct snaps. I'm of the belief now that we know that Barron is going to be a go, if that's the way that this will look, and unless there's some sort of hit that Barron were to take, and then all bets are off, I think you're going the Jalen Conyers, Taj Brooks. I think that's what you get as far as like some of that look, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Some of that direct snap, wildcat look, however you want to phrase it. I think those will be the two individuals that are potentially going to be utilized in that capacity. That's what I would say there. I just think there's a trust factor. You're going to go with seniors and things like that, because I think if you really wanted Cam Brown in this role, I think we would have seen it more. And now you're going to take him against one of the best defenses on the road and on long grass and in weather and all that. I don't know if I buy that, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the one that's wrong. I think you'd rather take those chances with Jalen Conyers and Taj Brooks, knowing that Baron Morton will start. That's what I would say.
I'm going to go with 2. Now, I don't know what the 2 is. I don't know which one I'm thinking. Is there a better chance that Morton's dinged around and we actually see Hammond back in a ball game, or is there the ball carrying component of Cam Brown? And you're making a lot of sense in that particular context. But if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I'm just going to say 2 this time around.
I think what you can say though is I think it's a safe bet now that we've talked gambling and compromised and all these different things. But I think it would be a really safe bet to suggest that. I would hammer this if you set the over under or like at 1.5 on who takes a snap, 1 or 1.5 or whatever. I'd hammer the over there.
Just anybody you're saying.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So in some ways we agree with each other, but we may just be like hemming and hawing about maybe who that person other than Baron Morton would be. But and that's the thing about this game, man, is Iowa State could come out and beat you by 24. And it won't surprise anybody. I think I would be maybe slightly surprised. I would, but they're not, they're not just all world. They have not, their numbers are much better on defense than they're on offense, but they've been in games. Houston, hung in there for a little while. Baylor certainly hung in there into the mid-third quarter before the wheels fell off. Central Florida controlled the game. I just don't know what you'll get from this Texas Tech team. The games that you just got over, a lot of times those linger. A lot of times those games can cost you more than once, or maybe you get a really motivated team. I just know that these games are fun because the payoff is certainly big. Like if you go get it done, the payoff is enormous. Yeah. You're making news for all the right reasons. You go get it done in Ames, Iowa. And that part to me is a lot of fun. The spread has gone just a bit, has dropped a bit since it started in the week. I think it's like at 13 and a half. But what Iowa State do, and this is what DB Carroll told me on the show last night, one of your senior defensive tackles. He goes, man, they're just kind of solid. He goes, but you know what they do? They just outlast people. And then I said, yeah, DB, that's a great point. I said, and they don't screw it up. And he's like, yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's really, they are finding ways to win. They outlast you and just kind of don't screw it up. But they've only been in 2 one-score games all year. And they've won them both. But like, you me tell you something else. Mm-hmm. They came into this year, they had lost 13 of 16 of their last 16, I should say, in one-score games. Okay, let me say that again to you. They had come into this season, they had lost 13 of their last 16 one-score games, and this year they're 2-0. So again, the margins, does it even out again if you get into a close one? But this may be like one of those teams just like, man, this is our year. We're going to go 4-5-0 in these one-score games after they've had this stretch of not, or do they regress back to the mean and be like, man, you really are a team that ultimately is not very good in close games over the last couple of years. So I don't know. But right now they're not screwing it up and they're outlasting people. I think that's what DB Carroll said, and I would agree.
Yeah, some of the various numbers on their resume, maybe you can talk yourself into feeling this way or that way about, but one gets your attention, and that's the one that relates to them winning everything and losing nothing so far this season. So obviously a huge challenge coming up as they've figured out a way to get to this point in the year unscathed. And it's now November, if you needed the reminder. Chris, appreciate your time all week long, man. The insight as well. Enjoy the road trip if that's possible. Hopefully the good guys make it easy to enjoy. And we'll get back together on the other side, man, and appreciate it.
And we talk turnover margins all the time. And I will tell you that the temperature margin is going to be like a plus 55 to 60 compared to what it was, when I was there 2 years ago.
Okay. I want to say things are looking up, but you got to win also.
Yes, we did. That's true. Yeah, that's true. And I think
the Red Raiders built a fight on the ice, like they say.
At the time you and I are talking, it appears that the rain may – I don't know if I trust it. All the forecasting models, but it appears the rain may be a bit later on that day or that evening. So maybe you just get semi-cold temperatures or chillier temperatures around the mid-50s and no moisture. So I don't know. We'll see what we get. But, it'd be a lot warmer than the last time when I was shooting chicken broth with Coach McGuire after the game to celebrate.
Hopefully a reason to do the same thing at the end of the fourth quarter coming up on Saturday.
Yes.
I appreciate all you guys for being out there. As always, get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And, of course, hit the show notes. Check out the Matador Mob Insider link, your direct line to Chris and myself. Thanks to those everydayers out there and those who are getting busy in the YouTube comment section. One of the best ways to help us grow the show, commenting anything below. So we appreciate you for doing that. We appreciate you for being back for this episode, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.